Okay, hi guys, good morning. My name is Kevin Brenner, and you are here so that we can all discuss, not me just stand up here like a talking head, we can discuss envelopes and heat pump work. Selling to your customers. We'll talk about that word in a moment. Okay, so are we mostly contractors? Raise your hand if you're a contractor. So we'll go with mostly contractors. Scream out if you're something other than a contractor.
Energy advisor.
Energy advisor, okay, but do you work for a contractor?
No, a hub.
A hub, okay, so you represent the hub world.
Utility.
What's utility?
Central Hudson Gas and Electric.
Okay. And they let you in here. All right, good, good.
And program.
What program?
Comfort Home.
Comfort Home, very familiar with that program. We love Comfort Home. Anybody else? Okay.
Utility as well.
What utility?
Nice RGB.
And they let you in here
They
as
also
well.
let me in, yes.
Right, got it, all right. That's nice. I mean, we obviously need the utilities, right? So fortunately, in my organization, I don't deal a lot with the utilities, but it's a utility. So we need them, they need us, hopefully, and it's a beautiful symbiotic relationship. Okay. Very quickly, I mean, I'll post these slides at some point, but basically I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. I've been in the trades for over 40 years. I had my first employee at age 19. I built a pretty successful building business. At the height of its success-ish, we were doing $30, $40 million worth of very, very high-end homes, or what I like to say, we did the unnecessary for the ungrateful. Think about that for a second. And then about 2007, I started testing my own homes, and I was like, wow, this is a separate business model. And then that was the birth of Healthy Home. And then in 2017, I stopped doing the unnecessary for the ungrateful. There was at some point, I'll tell you the literal straw that broke the camel's back. And I just focused on Healthy Home solely. I'm kind of a lifelong learner. I'm a tinkerer. I started out in the dumpsters and haven't really advanced much since then. And this is a class of, we were fortunate to get a grant from NYSERDA and teach some kids the right way to install heat pumps. And this was, this is one of the classes, I don't remember which one. And I'm also a part-time Westchester County Deputy Sheriff, which is fun. I'm the only one in the whole department of 140 that thinks climate change exists, but that's a whole other story. Yeah, that's quickly me. Okay, so you're here to learn a little bit about envelopes and heat pumps. I don't want to say learn a little bit. I'm assuming learn a little bit more, have some different perspectives. This is a safe space. Let's feel free to politely disagree with each other or not, and just have some fun. So I hate this word selling. It's not, selling, you feel like you're a used car salesman, you're selling somebody something. And that's not what we do, hopefully. I know that at Healthy Home, that's not what we do, right? We don't sell. We're not salespersons, we are educators. And that's how you can, if the end result is you make a sale, that's wonderful. But I think primarily we have to be educators. And I was doing a session yesterday with Steve Kelly, and I just found out right before the session that I educated a customer so well that we lost the project. Because I was saying, this is not really what you need. We can do some stuff, but what we really need is the guy who installed this work to actually install it the right way. And he got the guy to come back, and we'll see if he's going to remedy it the right way. But I think education, and in order for you to educate your customers, we need to be educated as well, so that at least we can pretend that we know what we're talking about. And hopefully there's a limited amount of pretend and a lot of actual knowledge. Okay, so let's educate. I am going to take some artistic liberties here. Feel free to raise your hand and say, Kevin, I don't agree with this, you're full of it, whatever, or this has been my experience. But again, this is a back and forth thing, or back and forth, or whatever. But I am going to take some artistic liberties following that 80-20 rule of this has been our experience 80% of the time, maybe even 90% of the time. Because we're not here to sort of dig into the weeds right now. We're here to have, a conversation. Okay, so this is going to be an interactive game. It's going to be the What Would You Do game. All right, so this is AI generated. Who here has played the AI game a little bit? It's kind of fun, right? To see what prompts you put in and what it spits out. And what do you use? What's your name?
Aisha.
Aisha, I'm Kevin. Aisha from Central Hudson. So what have you used AI for?
Invitations for like a Christmas party.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's great. And did you give it did you try to give it a personality?
Yep.
And did it work?
It did.
Did it work the first time?
No.
Right. So, some of this AI, this is not a thing on AI, but it's like you have to.
Be very specific.
Yeah.
But
I think the more information, and I find that talking to it like a human being is going to get you the best results. Yep. But, so I forgot what I put in this exactly, but I think I just put in, give me a Tudor-style house, draw an image of a Tudor-style house built in the 30s with single-glazed lead windows. And pretty much it spit out this first go. I was happy with it, and that's what we got. So, would you put a heat pump in this house? So, anybody?
Yes, if it's central. Depends.
Yes, what?
If it's central.
What do you mean central?
If you have a central unit, but not, I wouldn't put it on all the walls. But if you just had one heat pump or a ducted system.
So you would put a ducted heat pump in this house?
If the manual J showed that it more or less can take care of it for this region, yes.
Okay, anybody? I heard it depends. Okay. Anybody, any other opinions?
Yes, with conditions.
Yes, with conditions, which is very similar to it depends, right? Anybody else? Okay, I am a full believer in it depends. And let's talk about that for a little bit. I don't think that you could say unequivocally, unconditionally, I can put a heat pump in this house. And some people will do that. Some people who, if you're in the heat pump business, well, the chances are, well, never mind. Would you put a heat pump in this house? What did I just do? Okay, there we go. Okay, so assuming that this house was built in the 30s, so that's almost 100 years ago, how do you think that house was originally heated and maybe how it's being heated now? Steam boiler. Yep, and how is that steam getting to the rooms? Radiators. Yep, I would make that assumption as well. Did they keep the house roasty toasty? Yeah. Did it keep the house roasty toasty more on the upper floors than the lower floors? Yeah. Was it one pipe steam, two pipe steam? Who cares? There was a big old nasty, probably originally a coal, well, depending upon where this house was built, a coal boiler. Say it again?
And it was converted to oil.
Right?
And it was converted to gas.
That's exactly. What's your name?
Doug.
Doug, here, you take this. Yeah, so Doug, I agree with Doug. We don't all have to agree with Doug, but I think it went through one type of cycle like that. It started out as coal, then it went to oil, then it went to natural gas. Maybe it skipped the oil part. Who knows? It's got asbestos-laden pipes. Yeah, it's all the fun stuff that we get to see. Okay. So, assuming, so we've established, and very often that type of boiler, a steam boiler, or maybe they converted it to circulating hot water. And there's, at another time we can discuss all of the, like, you're a house detective, right? You go down to the basement, you go into the attic. What do you see? What do you think this was once? Was it, what's the size of the pipe? But maybe they converted it to circulated water at some point. How much insulation? If assuming, again, that it's close to what it looked like in 1932, let's say 36, what kind of insulation was in the house? Not much. Anybody else?
First air and paper.
Yep, that's fun to see. Vermiculite. So I'm going to go a little artistic here, and I'm going to say Zippo. Right? By the way, AI. Right? No insulation, some rafters, a little, what was his name from Barcelona? Gaudi? Gaudi, right? A little Gaudi-ish kind of trusses there. Yeah, so probably close to nothing. Maybe they sprayed some vermiculite at some point. Very, very, very unlikely with a stone and brick and stucco facade that there's any insulation in the walls, unless they retrofitted at some point. And so let's make the assumption, again, artistic liberties, that here, in terms of insulation, there's very little at best. Okay, so we didn't do any investigation. We ripped out those beautiful cast iron boilers, and we put in the heat pumps, and we did not do any envelope improvements. Will that customer be happy?
Probably not.
Probably not. By the way, let's also make the assumption that there are some customers that will never be happy. But let's go with that this customer had the potential to be happy if we did the right job. So will this customer be happy? No. Also AI generated. No. Obviously, I have too much time in my hands, which is not the case. But anyway, no, they're not going to be happy. So when somebody's not happy with the work that you do, or nobody in this room, everybody's always happy with the work that we do, but let's pretend for a second they weren't, right? What do they do? What do they do? You're not happy. Today, you did a job, you finished it yesterday before you came up to Saratoga, and that customer is in plain English. I'm from Brooklyn. Occasionally I use some plain English. I apologize if it offends anybody. That customer is pissed off. What do?
One-star Google review.
They give you a one-star Google review. What else do?
Talk to the neighbors and
They
their
talk to their neighbors. Which can do, if you had a scale and you had, what's the word I'm looking for? Standard deviations away from center. Which does more damage? An unhappy, which has a greater effect to your business? The thrilled customer that's equally as thrilled to the same degree as the pissed off customer. Which has a greater effect on your business? Pissed off. Like, I think it, and it's so easy to scream, I'm unhappy with Healthy Home. I'm unhappy with Halco. I'm unhappy with Central Hudson. I'm just really unhappy, and they love to scream that. So, and then what specifically are they going to tell their neighbors? What are they going to tell their neighbors specifically? Say it again. They screwed up my house.
Not to hire him.
Not to hire them. What's that? What are they going to say to their neighbors that's bad for everybody in this room, even if you're a competitor? What? Heat pumps don't work. Who said that exact quote? Did you see the slide deck beforehand? Right. Heat pumps don't work. They're not going to say that Joe told me I need to do envelope work in here. They're not going to say, another guy said we should at least insulate the attic. Another guy said, let's do the rim. Let's put storm panels on our windows. Let's do something. They are not going to admit any fault in this equation. And they are going to say, heat pumps don't work. Raise your hand if you've been to a house like this and you've suggested envelope work, and they want, for whatever reason, maybe, Doug, what's a typical reason that somebody in this house would call you to say, I want a heat pump?
They want air conditioning and they heard heat pumps are great from somebody else.
Great answer. So everybody hear what Doug said? I'll do this for the mic. They might say, I want air conditioning. I hear heat pumps can do both. So give me a quote. Give me a price for a heat pump, right? Great analogy there, right? So that would be a reason. How many people have walked into that scenario in this house? They've said, insulation, blah, 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 I don't want it, it doesn't work, just take out the boiler. And you did a blower door test, and this was 7 to 10 times over the building airflow standard, whatever method you use for the building airflow standard. Raise your hand if you've walked away from this job and not put on a heat pump because they said they wouldn't do any envelope work. I'm thrilled to see that. I hope everybody's telling the truth. And I'm guessing, again, if you're here, and we're all here to learn, myself included, that's the right answer. We've done it. We've done it. However, more often than not, if we've done a good job building value to our services and differentiating ourselves from everybody else, this will become a bigger job, right? This will become an envelope work. Now, it may not become a bigger job today, but it will become an envelope job and a heat pump job. In a perfect world, you probably want to do, well, let's assume that the installation of the heat pumps wasn't affected by any of the envelope work that you did. It'd be great to do the envelope work first. But a way to definitely get them back, and you're not being deceitful, is you do the heat pump work and you say, hey, Mrs. Jones, I'm going to do the heat pump work, but we sized, right? They never heard that word before, right? We designed, they haven't heard that work from Joe HVAC. We designed the system post-improvement. We're making the assumption that you're going to do this envelope work. And what does that mean? That means this summer you may be a little uncomfortable, but you'll be a hell of a lot more comfortable than you were when you didn't have air conditioning. And you also may have to put on a sweater a few days a year and be, light the fireplace or whatever during the winter time. That's almost an insurance policy that you'll get, especially after this winter, that you'll get back there and do the envelope work. Any comments on that? What are you guys' thoughts? Do you think that's a decent strategy? Anybody? No? Good? Okay.
If they just want air conditioning, we would typically sell them a Unico system and for the bedrooms or the second.
And so for the purpose of educating everybody in this room, when you say Unico, I think like small duct, high velocity?
Yeah.
And have you had success with that? And do you get noise complaints from that? Okay. Yeah. So, all right, that's an alternative.
It doesn't address the heat pump issue.
Right.
But it's strictly air conditioning, and that's typically what they call for. And it doesn't address the envelope or the boiler, but it gets them the job that you wouldn't get.
Yeah, and there's an argument to be made for that. So we're sort of on the other extreme in that, in terms of, and I'm not judging at all. I'm just saying for us, our mission statement is improving the health and comfort of improving your family's health and comfort while saving our planet. And I feel like doing something like that, this is just our philosophy, right? We don't do any fossil fuel work. Somebody wants a furnace swap out, a gas-fired furnace. We don't do that. That's just what we believe in. So we would walk away from that job unless they wanted to do some envelope work. Okay, so in your housing stock, well, I guess I should have asked this before. In the housing stock where you guys work, do you see those 1930 Tudors-ish? Yeah. And what about this? Yeah. Right? 1950s, 60s, Cape-ish house, also single glazed windows. You know, maybe in the late 80s, they had a vinyl salesman guy come through and they ripped those out. But let's play the same game here. Is this a fun game for everybody? The what would you do game? Okay, that's fun for me. Okay, would you put a heat pump in this house? Same question. And yeah, probably. I mean, I would say probably with a touch of it depends, right? But there's probably some. Does anybody in this room have a hard and fast rule that says if your building airflow standard is X amount over, I will not put a heat pump in this house? Anybody have that standard?
NYSERDA.
Yeah, and so what's NYSERDA's standard?
7 ACH.
7 ACH, right? So, yeah, I mean, is that do you think that, what's your name?
Mike.
Mike, do you think that that's a reasonable standard? Oh, we've spoken before, Mike. Hello. Right? Yeah. Do you think that that's a reasonable standard?
No, it's a little tight. You know, I've never seen the data on, you know, that's like the perfect number. Or why that's that number.
Right. Yeah. Anybody else I'm just curious, anybody else have an opinion on that?
Sure, you should be able to get down to 7 with just some amount of work.
Right. So I agree with Jeff, right? Jeff has a job with NEEP, so he has another perspective that I think is interesting, right? So yeah, I do think it's reasonable. I think you can get down to 7 ACH with just some basic air sealing. You know, and not even like anything significantly more than caulk and 1 part foam. So, which isn't, I mean, we all know, forget about what we charge per hour for NYSERDA to do that. We all know that it's not that difficult. In a house like this, you could, I think one guy could get this down to 7H with a tube of caulk and a few cans of 1 part foam in few hours, right? I mean, tell me if you think I'm wrong, right? Let's say that this is a 1,500 to 1,800 square foot house. Do people disagree with that?
The challenge.
Depends on everything.
Yeah.
You might have to open a wall and find that giant chase that.
Yeah. You might have to, but I would argue you don't have to open up the wall of that, because if you're doing blower doors, there's plenty of seats up here, guys. I promise I don't bite, but feel free to stand there too. Especially the tall guy who's going to block everybody.
More comfortable.
So, what were we saying?
More comfortable to stand. But like just finding a big chase behind somewhere.
Oh yeah. So, but who raise your hand if when you're doing air sealing you're using a blower door at the same time? Okay, for those who aren't, I would highly suggest that. It makes your job better, definitely quicker, and definitely better. I think that you might be able to find that chase by peeking up in the attic and see where they ripped out an old flue or something like that. So I personally, I would suggest that your company has some standard, whether it's the NYSERDA standard or something else, because you do need to have a line. If we're trying to do the right thing for our customers, I think you do need to have a line in the sand with some exceptions here and there, right? So let's say that person says to you, hey, I am going to finish my second floor attic space, or I am going to, I just can't afford it right now, but I am going to do my rim joist, or I am going to put storm panels on the second second floor single glazed windows. So yeah, again, we're businessmen, we're in business. You got to have some flexibility here, but I think explaining to your technicians and your salespeople or your advisors or your evaluators to have some line in the sand, it actually makes their job a little bit easier. Okay, so we have ended up here on this question, would you put a heat pump in this house? We ended up on the probably with a touch of it depends. How might this home be heated? Somebody other than Doug. Keith?
Low efficiency.
Oh, sorry, Matt. Sorry. What's that?
Low efficiency gas warm air furnace. With a bunch of 4-inch supply ducts.
Okay, could you say that out loud again? Because I think you nailed it.
Low efficiency gas forced air furnace from 1976.
An excellent year.
With a bunch of 4-inch supply ducts and like low wall diffuser.
Yeah.
Baseboard diffusers
right.
on the outside wall.
And those supply ducts, by the way, they're perfectly sealed with duct mastic and insulated in the unconditioned spaces and all that, right?
Of course.
Of course they are. Yeah. Of course they are. Well, look at that. I think that's pretty much what Matt just described. Right? And we did not talk ahead of this. Right? We did not plan this out. Another alternative that this might have if it was built a little bit later? Anybody? How about some, like at some point they put in some really low quality copper fin. Copper fin hydronic, not electric stuff, hydronic, right? Or this might be electric if it was supplemented the rooms that are being supplied by the 4-inch duct that's uninsulated and unair sealed, that's dumping, air into the crawl space, right? So it might be that, but this is more likely what we're going to see. An oil, in this case, or a gas-fired, low efficiency may not even describe what's happening there. And then you measure the steady state efficiency here, and then who knows what the distributed efficiency is, the distribution efficiency is. Right. Well, that's a great point. Say that again, Justin.
Asking if you even have enough ductwork to put in a properly sized heat.
Do you have, and we're going to, another guy who read my slides ahead of time, are we going to have enough ductwork, and are we going to have the right sized ductwork? Okay, let's discuss some of these scenarios. The furnace is ready to poop out and there's no AC. Everybody wants AC. Something similar to what Doug said before, right? This furnace is ready to go and I want AC. The ductwork is in decent condition and you could easily seal it. So the ductwork in this house maybe is in the attic, maybe in that knee wall that likely exists here, and so in a scenario like this, I would think, please chime in, that there's a nasty furnace in the basement. It has a stack that goes up to the attic and then goes to these two. This in typical Cape Cod. This might be a bedroom. This might be a bedroom, and the bathroom's behind it, and then it's serving the first floor by getting the ducts to the floor. Would everybody think that that's a somewhat of a likely scenario? Okay. So you can get to that ductwork because it's in the attic mostly, it's in the knee walls maybe, and it's definitely in the unfinished basement. Should we just do a box swap? Remember, we're still playing the game. Should we just do a box swap? Anybody? No. Why? Anybody? Okay. Great answer, right? If we insulate and we improve the envelope, we can put in a smaller unit. So if that's a 40,000 BTU unit, we don't need to put in a Mitsubishi P-Series 42K unit. But let's say that we did that. Let's say that we did that. Let's say that we felt comfortable enough where this heat pump was below that 7 ACH number and we were just going to do a box swap. What would we find there? Say again? What could be a potential issue with that? The ductwork. What about the ductwork?
It's not
Needs to be increased.
not enough CFMs,
Right. And so, Justin, why are there not enough CFMs?
because of the size of the supplies
Yeah.
in the trunk.
So what's the main difference between the delivered air that's coming from a furnace and a heat pump?
Heat pumps more at CFMs.
Say it again?
Heat pump provides more CFM.
Well, I'm thinking more about temperature.
Oh, about 40 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you got about a 40 degree, let's use that number. If you have about a 40 degree difference, so if I'm blowing out furnace air at, let's use a number, 130 degrees at the face of the register, and I'm doing that with 50 CFMs. Everybody with me so far? Okay. And then I only have the ability, because a heat pump by design, let's say, is obviously outdoor temperatures and blah, 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 blah. But let's say it's delivering that air at the face of the register at 90 degrees. Am I going to need more air to move to heat that room the same way versus 130 degree air? Of course. What's the likelihood that those ducts were, because they were thinking ahead 60 and 70 years, what's the likelihood that that duct is, it's Zippo. It's that same slide I showed before with the Gaudi trusses. It's Zippo. It ain't going to be there. Even if we can do a really good job sealing it. We've improved the distributed efficiency, but we don't have the heat. We don't have that heat energy to get into those rooms to keep those people warm. We don't have enough BTUs. We don't have enough hot air, right? We just don't. It's literally thermodynamically, physically impossible. Who has been into a house where the chief complaint is, I'm not getting enough heat and I just put in these brand new heat pumps? And you've seen what I just described somebody else did. Let's go back to that neighbor. Heat pumps don't work. That's what they're going to say. And that's all that they should care about, right? They're spending 20, 50, 100, however much money. The only thing that they should care about is, I wrote a big check to you and you didn't deliver. I wish I never did this, blah, 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 blah. And it's not blah, 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 but you know all the things that they're going to say. Okay, so should we just do a box swap? I feel the answer is no. However, let's view this no as an opportunity, right? Let's take this opportunity to differentiate ourselves from the competition. And here I describe as the competition as ATOAOT. Anybody know what that stands for? I think you could see it in the BPI standards book. Anybody remember that in the back of the book in the glossary? It stands for, let's differentiate ourselves from all the other blank holes out there. That's what that stands for. It's in the BPI standards, you can check it. The latest edition, right? Let's differentiate ourselves. Let's not just go in there and do that, okay? And let's work on a business opportunity here that's going to be better for you and your business, and significantly better, more importantly, than your customer. Because everybody in this room would not be in business if they didn't have customers. Aisha, you wouldn't have customers if people weren't buying electric and gas, right? Doug, you wouldn't have customers if people weren't buying Unicos and all the other stuff you install. Right? Same thing with all the Halco guys and Billy from 20 minutes south of Utica. Right? We wouldn't be in business without customers. And then if we take it the other, I think, correct step, which is trying to save our planet, you really haven't done a good job. Okay. So this is your opportunity to differentiate yourself. Without belittling and without, I heard a term about a year ago that I love, mansplaining. Does everybody know what that is? Right? Without mansplaining, you want to explain to your customer that the heat, it's very simple, right? You don't have to be a building scientist. The heat that comes out of this duct is a lot hotter than the heat that comes out of a heat pump by design. So I need more of that heat that comes out of a heat pump, and I'm sorry, Mrs. Jones, your ducts are just not set up for that. And now you're building a thought process, okay? You're differentiating yourself. You also need to explain the health and safety efficiency of proper duct sealing. All you need to do is to go up into that attic and show them what I know exists and everybody in this room knows exists, which is a big nasty hole in the return or the supply, and all of the rodent feces infested fiberglass insulation that's there, and show them how that the duct system, as poorly sealed as it is, it's doing a great job distributing all that stuff, right? So let's talk about the health and safety and efficiency of proper duct sealing. And explain, you know what, we may not have to replace all the ducts. We could seal it, we have access, but we still have that issue of getting enough heat to your house. We still have that issue. What do we do here? Right, so I say here, do we have to replace the ducts? The answer is no, we don't have to. And this is where, sorry, this is a little bit different than what I remember it being. We still have to educate the customer on what we just said before. So this is where we say, if we do some of this envelope work, how does people use, to the layperson customer, how do people explain envelope work? What terms do they use? Anybody? I'm curious. Say it again?
Insulation, they're not gonna understand air sealing.
Right.
The idea of insulation.
Yeah, the idea of insulation. Anything else?
Stack effect.
Say it again?
Stack effect.
You explained the stack effect. I mean, do you have success with explaining the stack effect?
Yeah, 'cause most customers don't understand.
Right, for
So
sure.
once you explain the process, they're like, oh, okay, that all makes sense.
Okay.
Filtration coming in, pushing your temperature out, you know,
Is any,
cause ice damming, melting on the roof.
Yep.
and all that stuff.
does anybody use any sort of visuals like a hat on the house or sweaters or boots or anything like that? Yep.
Like the boat approach.
Say it again?
You do a boat and you have all these holes in it. You build
Yep.
a little one and
That's like a Nate Adams thing, right? Yep. For those of you, by the way, who haven't read From the Eyes of a Customer, that Nate Adams book, I think it's really good. What's it called? The Home Comfort Book or something like that? It's really good to understand how you might want to explain some of that stuff to a customer. I have no stock in Nate Adams or anything like that. I just find that it's, as an initial, it's one of the mandatory readings for our new hires. Okay, so you can explain in whatever word you use that I may be able to use these ducts again if I am going to do put a hat on the house, put a sweater, put some boots on, and now you don't need as much heat. So maybe the heat that maybe the heat that I can get out of this brand new beautiful heat pump can be supplied through these ductworks once we seal it up. And by doing that, we're going to install smaller equipment. You said that back there, right? We have a smaller load. We're going to be able to install smaller equipment, and it's going to be less expensive to install and less expensive to run. I mean, who doesn't love that? So you're going to be more comfortable. Depending upon the customer and how you feel as a company, you know, you talk about getting off fossil fuels, right? If that's part of your gig, and it's going to cost you less money. So wait, let me hear this again. It's going to make me more comfortable for sure, and it's going to cost me less money on a monthly basis. Okay, that makes some sense, right? So it's not that difficult. And then how do you prove that, right? Does anybody here do some customer-friendly energy modeling and savings? You know, that's something that you may want to consider to say, listen, this is what you are today, and you have their energy bills. This is what you're spending today. This is what you're going to be spending once we put on do all this envelope work and put in a new heat pump. Now, what you have to be very careful of, little aside here, is that you have to explain to them that their electricity bill is going to go up. But if they take out that oil-fired furnace, pretend their domestic water is being made by electricity or something else, you take out that oil-fired furnace, your oil bill is now going down to zero. And that difference is what you're looking at. Okay? Anyway, because has anybody received that phone call? My electric bill is double, right? Thank you, Mrs. Smith. By the way, what's your oil bill? Oh, yeah, I forgot you guys told me about that. Right?
You also gotta be careful that you gotta compare on 2 different weather years.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I mean, however you want to explain equalizing it with heating degree days and cooling degree days, however you do that, that's also. So I think we use the word normalize. I think that's what we say. Okay. By the way, Mrs. Jones, I don't actually think we have we do have a client named Jones, a customer named Jones. But by the way, Mrs. Jones, as she's thinking about it, or they're thinking about it, or whoever's thinking about it, this is your opportunity again to differentiate yourself from ATO, whatever that abbreviation is, or did they do a heat load calculation? What's that? So, and did they put a big red or a red and yellow thing in your door to actually know and not guess at how leaky your house is? Don't use the words infiltration, exfiltration. Use plain English, right? So did they actually know how leaky is your house? Well, we know, and we've sized the right equipment for your house. We didn't just go look at the outside unit and match it. We know what it is, and we know what we can achieve when we do this air sealing and insulation. Right? It's another opportunity to differentiate yourself. Okay, Ranch, would you put a heat pump in this? Yeah. You get the point, right? The answer is, you can uniformly say that the answer to that question is, it depends, right? It depends. This is also where I feel like that line in the sand is helpful for you, for your customers and your salespeople, or your educators, or your comfort advisors, or whatever you call them. Okay, so this is the typical HVAC contractor.
AI.
AI, baby. AI.
Which one's the contractor?
Exactly, right. The guy with the dirty hands and the dirty face and sitting at the kitchen table and doing all this stuff. I used Hal's expression here, having a seat at the kitchen table.
Not looking like that, though.
No, not looking like that. Right. So, I don't know. AI.
Kill us.
All right. So let's talk about the typical HVAC contractor. This is artistic liberty, and it's one man's opinion. That's it. But you guys are in these chairs to hear this one man's opinion, so I'm going to give it to you. And tell me if you have other opinions. I want to hear about it. Everybody wants to hear about it, right? Equipment, 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 equipment. We had a customer where we put in a multi-head heat pump system, and we came back to them, and we offer a 1-year, what we call the Healthy Home Advantage Club, where that's our service contract customer. And for 1 year, when we do the install, we come back to them. I mean, we do it for free. It's part of the install. So we do it at no cost. Sorry, shouldn't use the word free. And then we charge them. So when we worked up what would our maintenance agreement, our preventative maintenance agreement be with them for the next year, it was $1,700. Okay? We get a call about a week later. She, as a profession, is an architect, which means by nature she's a pain in the ass. Right? Sorry to offend any architects. I've worked with them for many, many years and love some of them. And so she called us up and said, hey, Kevin, not Lexi, actually. Hey, Lexi, we got a quote from so-and-so, and you were literally 10 times that quote. How is that possible? And then you have to politely explain that the reputation of this particular competition is equipment, 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 equipment. They don't have technicians that go in there and do preventative maintenance. They have salespeople going in there, the traditional salespeople, not the educators, who are going to sell you something. That's how they make it up. You can't get a guy in a truck for $170 to drive to, East whatever, right? You can't do that. We would be out of business. And they have a pretty big, successful in terms of dollars business. You can't do that. And I mean, you're going to lose money. They're trying to sell you equipment. Okay. You got the Hey Lady syndrome. Anybody know what that is? The Hey Lady syndrome is, hey lady, you got a 3-ton unit over there? I'm going to put in another 3-ton unit, right? That's the Hey Lady syndrome. Also in the BPI standards. Okay. Very little or more likely no building science. By the way, all of these tie together, right? These are just describing this guy here, right? They're describing this guy here. Stack effect, what the hell's that? What's a stack effect? Honestly, I mean, if you guys disagree with anything I say, please raise your hand. I really want, what's a stack effect? What's BPI? What's, what's thermodynamics? What's a load calculator? Oh, you mean the thing on the wheel you spin and right? What's that? Oh, we give that to our supplier. This one I love. They start the sentence with, hey lady. Hey lady, these heat pumps don't work around here. I mean, there are people in the trade who actually believe that. Now, I have a home in Massachusetts. I was there for a period of time a few weeks ago where the lows were at -12. The house is heated, surprisingly, with heat pumps, right? Now, those things were running full force. I didn't feel any difference. Now, is it a well-insulated house? Yes. Is it net zero? No. But I sold it a few years ago. I did live in a net zero house, and there was also the same thing, right? No issues. So, I mean, this kills me. This kills me. Now, is it going to work in that house that, let's say, is above 10 ACH? No. Is it going to work in that Tudor if you don't do any envelope work? No. So yeah, that would be correct. But don't give me that as a blanket statement that they don't work around here. What's a blower door? Back to building science. How could you do an accurate load without a blower door? Manuel, oh, that's another one. Manuel J, he don't work here no more. He don't work here no more. Right? I mean, am I making any of this up? Like, have you guys, if you've been in the trades long enough, you will hear a slightly, maybe slightly different version of every single thing on this list. The only way that they remain in business is that equipment, is that mechanical swap or add. My daughter's room is cold. Let's put in a heat pump in that room. Let's not address the disease. Let's fix the symptom. That's how we make money, right? We sell them something. Let's sell them something. They do not RTFM. Steve, you were just at Brian Orr conference, right? I hate to put you on the spot, not really. What does RTFM stand for?
They don't read the freaking manual?
That's it. Read the frickin' manual. At last year, and by the way, for the HVAC guys here, if you haven't been to Brian Orr's HVAC ARC Symposium in Florida, put it on your bucket list. It's, I think, one of the best events out there, if not the best event out there. Of course, beside this one. Okay, and last year he was selling t-shirts, RTFM. Now, Brian Orr is a good old boy from the South, so he doesn't use what that F word really stands for, but he wrote there, read the frickin' manual. And that's what I'll call it, read the frickin' manual. One of my favorite phrases. The typical HVAC contractor will try anything once as long as their grandfather did it. Right? By the way, what does an electrician call flex duct?
Hello.
Knee pads. Thank you, Adam. Yeah. Okay. Now let's talk about everybody else in this room. Right? That was the typical guy. Let's talk about everybody in this room. Look at that happy face. Look at those clean hands. Right? Look how the homeowner is gazing into his eyes.
Her hair up and everything.
Got her hair, she got all dolled up because, you know, Mr. Halco was coming to town and she wanted to look pretty. Okay. Building science first. I believe that if you're sitting in this room, you believe in building science. And that, now here comes my opinion, that should be first. Thermodynamics, hot goes to cold, high pressure to low pressure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not complicated. But in a way, if you follow that rule book, similar to that line in the sand of the that ACH number, it'll make your job easier, right? Yes, we're all in business and we have to sell stuff. Everybody in this room has customers that we've discussed before, right? Or maybe you're just starting out and you need your first customer. Whatever the reason is, it's got to be building science first. Does that mean, you know, I was in one of these rooms, I was with a panel with Hal the other, Steve's panel with Hal yesterday, and he said, you don't want to overload them with information. I agree with that too, but you need to know the information so that you could educate and provide them the thing that they're paying for. And it all starts with building science. Does anybody, feel free to, does anybody disagree with that? Is there another thought process there? I'm curious.
I really have to gauge my client when I go in. Are they into cars? Okay, I'm going to use 60,000 mile checkup analogies here.
Yep.
Doctor, and I thought about checkups. Are they at all interested in building science? Or are they just like, you do your thing, we'll talk later? It's all reading.
Jeff, thank you for saying that. I don't think I conveyed the message well. The message I was trying to gauge is not how you present it to the customer, but how you are recommending that solution. Yeah, sorry about that. And thank you for clarifying because that could have been confused. Yes, I am not saying you sit down at that kitchen table and you start talking about the stack effect or CFM50 or ACH natural or ACH 50. I'm not suggesting that at all. In fact, I'm suggesting the opposite of that. But what I am suggesting or encouraging is that how you provide that solution, it has to be building science based first. So thank you for saying that, Jeff. Yep.
It's driving me crazy. I know your wife's not here, but
Oh, God, just reading my mind.
you need to.
You waited this freaking long?
See, I couldn't do it. But I would have done it.
Can we have a round of applause for Doug, please? By the way, my wife's name is Jill, and she thanks you. You know, you can't even dress me up. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, Doug. Okay. You need to understand the envelope at a minimum. And why I say is the minimum is like, you should be able to understand more than the envelope, but at a minimum, you need to understand how our envelope functions, which goes back to the stack effect, and it goes back to building science, and it goes back to the first and second law of thermodynamics, right? That's what you want to do. Sometimes you have to say no. I was a 19-year-old kid, and I never said no, and I paid the price. Can you do this? Sure I can. Will it do this? Of course it will. And it's painful. It's painful to walk away from a check. But you got to see past that check, and you got to see the next 1,000 checks. And you cannot afford, and I'll speak for the neighborhoods that we travel in, and probably not unlike the neighborhoods everybody here travels in, you cannot afford to screw up. Because especially in this age of social media, somebody knows somebody who knows somebody. Guaranteed. And that word can spread like the wildfires, God forbid, in Los Angeles. Okay. As part of addressing why you guys are in this room, I think a holistic solution is important. Now, you may go to a house that doesn't need any envelope work. That's okay too. Let them know that. Let them know that, hey, you know, we did check out how leaky your house is. And you know what? I got some good news. It's pretty good. So we can do just the heat pump. But we are going to design the loads to what we know the loads to be, not necessarily what your boiler says it should be. Right? But great news, your house doesn't need any work. Maybe that's an opportunity. If, let's say, they're right at the building airflow standard, maybe that's another opportunity to put in an ERV. Right? It's another opportunity, I think. Does an ERV save you, save on your energy bills? I would say it doesn't. But it increases the health of your home, of your occupants, and how efficient these things are is not going to cost you. I think I once did an analysis based on really running an ERV in my home and testing it, and I think it was like, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I think it was either $1.20 a year or $12 a year or something like that, something ridiculously low. Running at low speed, 24/7 with a booster fan. You're an educator, not a salesperson. I hope I beat that to death. You have trained installers, another differentiator. We have at Healthy Home our training facility called the Healthy Home Academy. Oh, there it is right there. It's just a formal place to train people. I'm going to rip through this. Training your people on everything is really important, especially of what they install. Your technicians actually read the frickin' manual. They're not gas and go. Some statistic that ACA sends out there, and you guys, any of you guys familiar with Measure Quick? Right, I see a couple nodding heads. Jim Bergman, who is the, I guess, CEO of Measure Quick, he says, and I think ACA agrees, and maybe they found out together, that 95% of refrigerant systems that are put in houses are not installed as per the manufacturer's spec, whether it's an airflow issue or refrigerant. So you have to impress upon them that our installers, our technicians do read the manual. And that's good timing. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Anybody want to say thank you? Oh wait, I'm supposed to say thank you. Yes, thank you guys. So hey, feel free to reach out to me. As I've said before, like I'm on the back nine, trying to take all this information that's between my ears, which I lose 10% of every day, and distribute it to the next generations, because it would be a shame if it went away. So thank you guys, I appreciate it. Thanks very much.